And the title of her talk is What's in a Name? And these are the names, road names in Aiken County. So I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors for the summer lecture series. And that's Downtown Dental, Charlotte Wiedemann. She's here tonight. And I can't read that, but I think it's Johnson Johnson, Lancer and Widow. Did I miss one name? Well, I got most of them. Okay, they're our sponsors, so we're really appreciative of that. And you know, these events are really fundraisers for us, and we want to make it educational and fun for you also. I have membership applications that I'm going to pass around, and if you're not a member of this, and you can see inside there's different membership levels, and it talks about the benefits you get from signing up, and then there's the actual application form, and you can write a check to the friends if you want to join tonight, or you can take it home, and you can do it online. So we're trying to really boost our membership, so we'd appreciate your support. And again, a lot of our dues money goes towards supporting the museum, since we are a nonprofit 501c3 charity. Okay, so without further ado, here's lovely Lauren.
Thank you. All right, now don't y'all fall asleep on me. I know you've had pizza, I know you've had dessert, but I'm going to try and keep you awake. All right, so as Chris was saying, my name is Lauren Virgo, and I'm the executive director here at the Aiken County Historical Museum. I was born and raised in North Augusta. Any North Augusta peeps? I feel left out. I'm all alone. But I grew up just down the road, of course, and I grew up off of Martintown Road. And Martintown Road was something that I just took for granted. Of course, it's Martintown Road. I live off of it. That's what it is. Never gave a second thought to what was Martintown? Where did it go? When did it start? Who traveled along it? How was it important to the Aiken County area? So that started off, and then of course you probably yourself have driven by many streets and gone, what's that name for? You know, they're just odd little names, and you're just like, I wonder how that got started. And this was really to answer some of those questions. Now, so help me, I try to do so much research on so many roads, but there are too many, y'all. It is a lot of roads in Aiken County, and specifically in Aiken itself. And so what I decided to do for the talk tonight was really to highlight about 4 or 5 major thoroughfares that really date back to the earliest days of Aiken County and even predate Aiken County itself. Bonus quiz for a prize. Can anybody tell me when Aiken County was founded? Yes! All right! Hoorah! Got the crowd back on that one. Thank y'all. 1871. So we have a lot of history, obviously, before 1871 and a lot of roadways. So you'll see me cover those tonight. Just know that they all weren't Aiken County back then. They were Edgefield District, or they were 96th District, or, you know, some combination of the different districts that were in the area. All right. So one of the things that's fascinating to me, and I know I'm a dork, so just hang with me, but the development of roadways, of course, back in the earliest days of civilization in our area, followed the path of least resistance. So what are you going to look for when you're developing a roadway or a pathway to a destination? You're going to look for flat land, you're going to look for something that's not muddy, and you're going to look for something that's mainly cleared already to find the easiest and most direct path. And that's what's interesting about the earliest maps of this area is that it really followed, for the most part, our waterways. So Aiken County is very interesting because we are bounded by the south by the Savannah River. We are bounded by the north fork of the Edisto River. And then on either side of us, we're pretty much following either Horse Creek Valley and Foxes Creek, and to the right, the upper Three Runs. So when you look at a geographical map, this is Google Earth, and I just took this, of course, recently as a screenshot. Forgot my voice. So you can see that the Savannah River borders on our lower portion. You've got major waterways here, major waterways here, here's the Edisto, and here's the Edisto. And so what you'll see in the coming slides is how often our waterways developed our roadways. Oh, and I do not mean to give y'all whiplash, but I'm gonna, because I thought it would be really interesting to show y'all on Google Earth where these streets are, because, I mean, I grew up off of Martintown Road. I know where that runs to, but not everybody does. So I created a Google Earth map that has these roadways as well as my presentation, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of back and forth. So I'll try not to lose you on that. Again, here are the earliest road maps. So, of course, the earliest pathways were developed by American Indians. And this was for trade purposes, for travel purposes. And one of the absolute earliest paths that we know of, so this map is from 1776, so right at the founding of America. And you can see one of the earliest roads is coming up this way, up to what we would call Silver Bluff area today. And North Augusta is right about here. But you can see how it followed the riverbeds and followed it up into our area. That was one of the earliest paths that settlers would take from the Charleston area to our region. Of course, they also traveled by the river as well. But if the river was low or there was a drought or things like that, or sometimes it was just easier if you were in a hunting party, you would follow these roadways to and from the Charleston area for trade or produce or markets. And what's interesting is that you can see that they clearly avoid all these lower branches right here of rivers and creeks because, of course, all that's swampland. It's harder to get through, especially if you're riding horseback or something like that. So it's interesting the way that the early streets developed. Again, this is the 1776 map of our area, and it's done by Henry Mouzon. And I've just done a red overlay of where about Aiken County is today. Don't hold me to it. I'm not going to swear on a Bible that's exactly it, but it's close enough for government work, and I'm a government employee, so we're going to go with it. But you can see kind of how we developed around those river areas. Now, if you're interested in delving into this a little bit more, you can go to scmemory.org, one of my favorite websites, and you can find maps dating to the early 1800s. And one of them that's absolutely wonderful and has been a great resource is the Thomas Anderson map. He drew this map in the 1815, 1816 time periods, and he wrote down who lived where, what the street was, or what the road was. We didn't have streets back then, and kind of drew in a lot of great information. And another, Linda wouldn't let me go if I didn't say this, another fascinating fact about Thomas Anderson is that he laid out the city of Aiken. A lot of people know that Cyril Pascalis and Alfred Dexter also helped lay out the lots and design the city, but it was really Thomas Anderson who laid out the city of Aiken. He also laid out the city of Hamburg and the city of Blackville too. Am I right on that, Linda? Yes, no, maybe so? Shrug and it's all good. Yep, we're good. So the maps of Thomas Anderson are vital to understanding the travel and the pathways of the Aiken County area. One thing we also did for research for this presentation is Linda, who, bless her heart, goes along with everything I say. When I say, do you want to go to an archive? She's like, yes! So she is my go-to person for going to archives. We went to the Barnwell County Archives, we went to the Edgefield County Archives, we went to South Carolina, which is at USC. If y'all have never been there, go there, it's fantastic. And then we went to the South Carolina Department of Archives and History. And while we're up there, we're looking for maps, but maps are few and far between. So a lot of the research we did for this was pulling plats. Now, if you're not a surveyor, you may not know what a plat is, But a plat is just a drawing of your land, and it's marked out by a surveyor and then given to the government to say this is the land you own. So a lot of what the information that we got today was pulled from those plats. Just so you know what a plat looks like, it looks like this. So this is a plat that I cut in half digitally, not in real life. But here it gives the information as to who bought the land, when they bought it, who they sold it to, whose land's bordered on whose. And if you're lucky, you get to see roadways cut through the plats. And this just happens to be a road that says from Hamburg to Augusta. And there's another road, it's hard to see right here, that says road from Cherokee Pond. And that's what's so interesting about a lot of the names as we come across them, is early on there were no really fancy names to a road. It was just basically telling you how to get from one place to another. It was all about direction and where you want to go. So the early names were Road from Augusta to Columbia. All right, that's where I want to go. I want to go to Columbia, and I'm in Augusta, so I'm going on that road. You've also got like road from Aiken to Edgefield County Courthouse. The courthouses were vitally important to your everyday life. That's where you recorded your wills, your deeds, your plats. Everything had to be done at the courthouse. Or you could sometimes choose landmarks like the White Pond, or one of my favorite ones near Montmorency was called Polecat Pond. Now, who knows what a polecat is? Yeah, it's a skunk. It's Pepe Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew was hanging out at the pond. He stunk it all up, and they named it after him. So Polecat Pond is just down the road in Montmorency, so you could say the road to Polecat Pond. So they would choose destinations, important structures, or landmarks that everybody knew. You could also name a road after whose house it went to. So we have one plat that I saw that said Road to Snow Hill. Now, Snow Hill wasn't a town, it wasn't a community, it was a beautiful house owned by Samuel Hammond in North Augusta. So that was the road to his house if you wanted to go see Samuel Hammond. Another one that I caught that I just had to share with y'all is Road to Rambo's place. Who knew that Rambo was here? I mean, really, celebrities galore, just so well known. But we had a road to Rambo's place back in the day. Roads could also tell you where the crossings were. And this is vitally important if you need to get across a roadway in a wagon. You're not going to be able to walk across it or ride your horse. You need a bridge or a ferry. So the roads would often tell you which ferry you were going to head towards or which bridge you were going to head towards. So back then, and we're talking pre-1900 for the most part, what are you traveling in? So you're either walking or on horseback, which was probably the most common method of transportation, right next to wagons if you were a farmer and taking goods to the market. Sometimes if you were fancy schmancy, you could ride an omnibus or a stagecoach. And a stagecoach, of course, ran on certain times. It was more like a bus shuttle of nowadays. And omnibuses worked on pretty much the same way, although sometimes an omnibus could be owned or hired out by a company, and they would travel 4, 5, 6 passengers up and down the roadways. Here on the left, we have a picture in Graniteville in the 1920s, and even in the 1920s, people were still using horses and wagons in the area. On your right, you've got a photograph and a postcard version of Sandbar Ferry, and you can see the ferry that would have shuttled you across. I don't know about y'all, but I don't know that I would take that ferry. That looks very rickety and very loose with the boards. So I would make sure I'm a very good swimmer before I take that ferry. The other issue that you have to think about too when you're traveling along these roadways are, is it public or is it private? A lot of roads were cut in by private owners, and if you wanted to travel on them, you paid a toll. And you'll see in the deed works and the plats and things like that, as you get further and further along in the 1800s, people started saying and writing to the government saying, please make this a public road. We really need to be free travel along this road if we want to see this market succeed or this town succeed. So there's a lot of petitions to the South Carolina State Legislature of, please make this a public road. I thought y'all might like these photographs. On the left, you can see an omnibus, and that is an omnibus for the Highland Park Hotel. So we're looking at about 1885, 1890s, And of course, if y'all know Alan Riddick, you know that photograph came from him. So he has all the coolest photographs. So I just love that. You've got people standing outside of the train station. There's a little boardwalk right there on the right, so you can, ladies, so you don't get your dress messed up in the mud, you can walk on the boardwalk. And then, of course, on the right, we have, if you are just a normal farmer, you're taking your goods to the farmer's market, you might have an oxen, and you might have a flat back wagon so that you can haul all of your goods. And I just had to show you this one. I just love it. So for a while, we had on exhibit a goat cart, and I was like, goat cart? I've heard of a golf cart, but not a goat cart. And evidently this was a thing in Augusta, Aiken, all over the place. If you were a child, and I guess you needed to learn how to drive, you would be hitched up to a goat and led around the town. This one specifically is in the Hitchcock Woods, and these are the Appleton daughters. They were the daughters of a winter colonist here locally, and they were going to Celestine Eustace's, or one of the events I think that was put on Hitchcock Woods by the family, called the Fête des Fleurs. And so that's why they're all dressed up, and their wagon is all dressed up with ribbons and things like that. And of course they've got a billy goat at the head of there leading them on. So those are the ways you're transporting yourself on these roads. Now, what do these roads look like? This is Aiken, around 1910, and this is downtown Lawrence Street. It says Main Street, but really it's Lawrence. You can see how wide the boulevard is. You can see the wagons pulled up to the businesses on the right. And down the middle, you can see a track, and that, of course, is for the trolley. Now, I don't have time to get into the trolley. It's a fascinating story. But basically, the trolley operated between North Augusta and Aiken, and you could pay 25 cents to ride from Augusta to Aiken for the day, and I wish that was still here. That would be so cool. I would pay that all day long. And what's so fascinating is I was talking to a lady, this is years ago, and she was in her 90s. She remembered being a child and being given a dime by her mom. She lived in the valley. And they would hop on the trolley and come into Aiken, and they would use a dime for the trolley, and they would use, I think it was a nickel for the theater. And they would go all day and spend all day in the theater and then hop back on the trolley and come on home. So I thought that was just a great way to enjoy your childhood. Outside of the city of Aiken, this might have been your more rural roads. And this one is in Graniteville, and you can see the sign there in the middle. It says Graniteville 3 miles. Sorry, the resolution's not great on that. Sorry, guys. But in being a researcher and trying to research the names behind these streets, I wish all of them were this easy, because there's a memorial plaque right in the middle next to that street sign that says, Graniteville, Gregg Highway, given in honor of William Gregg, founder of Graniteville, blah, 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 blah. Gave you names, dates, stamped it in stone, put it at the street sign. I'm like, yes, you make my job easy. Unfortunately, they're not all like that. So, what are some of the oldest names that we came across in our research? Believe it or not, I was surprised to see that it was Two Notch Road. Two Notch Road, which is a very short road in Aiken. In fact, let me see if I can, this is the whiplash part, y'all, sorry. Let me see if I can take you to it. All right. Let me see if I can zoom in while holding the microphone. So you can see here's Pine Log and there's Whiskey, two of our more famous roads. And Two Notch is, where'd it go? Two Notch? I know I had you here. Where'd you go, buddy? There's Three Notch. Anyways, Two Notch goes from like here to like here. It is a very short spurt near the polo fields and the equestrian fields, and it's very small. But back in the day, Two Notch Road and Pine Log Road, that's the other oldest street in the Aiken area, all service different areas. And of course, Two Notch could lead you in different roadways, and I'll show you that just in a minute. So some of the names, though, have changed through time, which makes it a little bit of a booger to try and find them across different historical records. But some of them are pretty easy. They'll leave clues behind, like Old Trolley Road. Guess what went down there? The trolley. Old Augusta Road, where'd that take you? Augusta. And we even have Old Tory Trail in our area, and I went, Old Tory Trail. Okay, Tory, American Revolution, that's great. And then I was like, wait a minute, were we Tories or were we Whigs? And I was like, we were Whigs, we weren't Tories. So I suggest a name change that goes before Aiken County Council. That says that roadway be changed to Old Whig Trail. So it represents the American cause. Hoorah. And then, of course, you have Old 96 Trail, which was a former Indian trail, and it tells you they're right in the name. So some of them are pretty obvious, which is nice. Some are completely gone. So you may be reading historical documents or historical newspapers, and it would say Road to Cambridge. Did y'all know we had a Cambridge? I didn't. It was just outside of Edgefield. Road to Snow Hill, like I said, to Samuel Hammond's. Road to Campbelltown, that's North Augusta today. And, of course, Road to Hamburg, which is also long gone. So often, as I said at the very bottom here, I put Ye Old Dirt Road because I'm creative, yeah. But I put that often the name was not publicized. You just didn't write in your documents, legal documents, we are naming this road because of ... And it's very rare, in fact I haven't found it yet, where somebody wrote in their diary, today I walked upon the Whiskey Road and I got drunk. There's just no reason often written in letters and newspapers and journals as to why things got their name. So you kind of have to develop some theories. And that's what we're going to go through a little bit here is some of my theories. All right, let me get you back into the presentation. All right, so Pine Log Road. Like I said, one of the earliest roads are Pine Log Road and Two Notch Road. Pine Log is spelled so many different ways. Sometimes it's Pine Log with 2 G's because it wanted to be fancy that day. Sometimes it's Pine Log Bridge. But basically it was the road from the Aiken area to Columbia. It crossed the South Edisto River, and that's where it gets kind of unique because the South Fork of the Edisto River is where you see the reason why it got its name, at least we think. So there was a gentleman named Wheaton Pines. He comes into the area about the 1780s and starts buying up land. And in some newspapers, I found mention of Pine Log Church, Pine Log Community, Pine Log this. So I'd always assumed they were merely talking about the bridge's construction. But now I'm leaning towards the theory that Wheaton Pines developed a community called Pines, or Pine later on, and that this was the road to his community. And what's interesting is this map is from 1815, and you can see you're coming, this is Mosley and Williams, so this is about Aiken. You're coming all this way down here, coming to the South Fork, and you're crossing where the river joins between Shaw's Creek and, I forget this one. I forget that creek. But the two creeks come together, and you see Pine Log, and you see the dash, dash, dash of the road, and you see a very tiny little bridge right there. So that is your Pine Log Bridge for your Pine Log Road, right there. Now, where that is today is close to where the Aiken State Park Road goes across the Edisto River. So that is about where we think the Pine Log Bridge was. And then, of course, once you cross the Pine Log Bridge, right about down here, you would go up and you would see a community named Pines, just on the underside of the North Fork of the Edisto River and on your way to Columbia. So it makes sense in a way that the road that's called Pine Log was originally from the Aiken area to Columbia and was named for the Pine community. But again, it's just a theory. I did not find any diary from Mr. Pines that said, today I built a bridge and named it after myself. So these are all a little bit of supposition. But again, we do have this deed of gift, or not deed of gift, sorry, that's museum terms. We do have this deed that was given in 1785 for Wheaton Pines for land south of the Edisto River and above the Pine Log. And the Pine Log was an area that they called just a pine clearing, a big, long pine clearing area. So again, dating all the way back to the 1780s, we have the Pine Log Road. Now, I'm going to take you in a totally different direction. Growing up in North Augusta, one of my favorite things was the Plank Road. Anybody ever heard of the Plank Road? Dang, fresh meat. All right. Awesome. So the Plank Road was an innovative, chance that they took in development. So back in the day, like I said, your roads were all dirt. And dirt roads, after a rain, equal muddy roads. And muddy roads become pretty darn impassable when you're in a wagon and drawn by several horses. All the hoofs churn up the dirt and the mud, and it makes it just terror to get from place to place. Hamburg is this new little town in North Augusta area, and they are trying very much to woo all of the Edgefield farmers to bring all their cotton and tobacco and corn and goods to Hamburg and not to Augusta. And so Henry Schultz comes up with a plan along with some other folks, including William Gregg, who is an early proponent and advocate of the plank roads. And they decide to build a plank road from Hamburg, North Augusta, all the way to Edgefield. That is 26 miles, y'all. And you can see the construction of what they would have had to have done to build the plank road. That was a lot of work, and it took several years. And unfortunately, shortly after they finally got it complete in 1854, a few years later in the newspapers, you see people saying, man, the road is falling apart, the wood is rotting, they're warping, they're turning up. And people just started saying, we're not taking the plank road, especially since it was a toll road. Again, this is privately built. They've got to make money off of it to make the repairs. And so the plank road era is very short-lived. In fact, between, I think it's 1849 and 1853, there were 10 companies chartered in South Carolina to develop these plank roads. And ours was the longest. And boy, did it fail. So we failed big, y'all. But the plank road still has some remnants. In fact, in North Augusta, I think there's still a little section where they uncovered a little bit of the plank road. And unfortunately, all that truly remains to keep it in the memory of everybody is in downtown North Augusta, there is a little street that goes about 3 blocks called Plank Road. And that's all that remains of that. Coming back to Aiken, so we have a map at the Aiken County RMC office that is one of my favorites. It was designed by, let me get the French right, James Ahil de Caraduc. You really got to throw it in with a duke at the end. But he designed a map in 1869 of downtown Aiken, and what's fascinating is he puts on there who used to own the land, where this roads used to be, and where specifically the inclined plane used to be, and then where the cut came through. So he left a lot of details of not only how Aiken looked at the time, but how it had been before all of the development. And what's great about it is that he notes, coming above here above Abbeville, and coming out of the Lawrence Street area, a road called Two Notch. So, and you can see a document down here at the lower right that says, resolved that we recommend the Two Notch Road from Columbia to Mintz Bridge to the legislation to be established as a public road. Again, this is one of those things that had probably started off as a private road, and later people are petitioning for it to become a public road. Now, it's interesting because in the early deeds, in the early newspapers, you see sometimes Two Notch and sometimes Two Notched Road. And the notched is, so remember how I said you'd have to get a plat done for your land if you were going to buy something and have it recorded by a surveyor? Well, back then there was no GPS. You weren't walking around with your phone going, okay, land marker, blah, 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 blah. All right, land marker, blah, blah, blah. You looked for the nearest tree, or pile of rocks, or stump, whichever was your leisure at the time to where you thought the line of the owner's land should be. And what they would do to those trees is they would take their axes and they would notch marks in the tree to show that that was the barrier of your land. What better way to mark a roadway to show you where you should travel than notching the trees? So if you were going up Two Notch, you would look for 2 notches in the tree, and that was your path to Columbia. Now, like I said, today there's only a small remnant, basically from Grace Avenue to Pine Log Road. It was originally a road from Aiken to Columbia, and it pre-exists 1829. I couldn't get it all the way back to the 1800s at the turn of the century, but I did find a document back to 1829. Very similarly, there is a road in North Augusta, again, hometown, whoop, whoop, that exists today, and it's actually one of the longer streets in North Augusta, and it's called Five Notch Road, also referred to historically as Five Notched Road. Today it runs from Sweetwater Road all the way down to Georgia Avenue, or Knox Avenue, which is called Old Edgefield Road. Guess where that led? And it was established back in the 1820s as a road from Hamburg, again a city that doesn't exist anymore, to that Cambridge that I mentioned just outside of Edgefield. And I looked up just to make sure there were other notches, and I found them. There's actually a 3-notch road closer to I-20 at the exit 29. So we've got 3 types of notches in Aiken County, y'all. We're fancy. And what's interesting is that when I look up the history of notched roads, you can find them up and down the East Coast. A lot of towns have their own version of 5-notch, 2-notch, 3-notch. And if you drive up in Columbia today, you will still find a 2-notch road up there that probably partnered with our 2-notch down here. Again, this is going back to that Decaraduke map, and I know it's a little bit hard to see here, but here is Coker Springs. And here is Whiskey Road, and it says Whiskey Road coming into town, and then it would have turned here, and it would have gone on up to the roads that went to Edgefield. So Whiskey Road is a very old road, and it actually predates the city of Aiken. I found a piece of legislature, again, people petitioning to the state legislature to make a public road from a private road, and it's down here at the very bottom, and it says, petition to the legislature, we humbly showeth, I love the Old English. Can we just start using showeth more often? Will y'all promise to work that into your daily language for me? Okay. Like, may I showeth you to the dining room? It's perfect. But humbly showeth that the road leading from Aiken to Rouse's Bridge, and Rouse's Bridge is near Upper Three Runs, which is the far end of basically the Savannah River site today. So we humbly showeth that a road leading from Aiken to Rouse's Bridge in the Upper Three Runs, known as the Old Whiskey Road. And this is in 1836, y'all, that they're calling it the Old Whiskey Road, and that it was formerly open as a public road. It has become a private road, and they're asking it to be reopened as a public road, specifically for the intent of bringing goods to the Aiken market. They want all the farmers living out in the New Ellington and Upper Three Runs area to be able to bring their goods into downtown Aiken for the market. So Whiskey Road dates back a long time. It was laid out by the Barnwell Commission of Roads. Again, it predates the city of Aiken. And what I love, I just had to say this. Have any of y'all ever taken the trolley tour? Did they tell y'all about how Whiskey Road used to be called Cherokee Road? No? Okay, I got that on my tour, and it totally piqued my interest. And I was like, Cherokee Road? I've never heard of this being called Cherokee Road. So, late 1800s, you have what's being called the women's temperance movement. And this is, again, say with me, prohibition, right? This is women saying, we don't want any more alcohol, and we want all alcohol names basically struck from the Aiken area. So the ladies petition to the gentlemen on the council that the name should be changed. And in the newspaper report in 1899, it says what I've shown you up here. It says, Whiskey Road, which was given to it more than half a century ago, and this is 1899, so again, showing it predates Aiken, grew out of the fact that over this road was brought to Aiken the largest amount of corn juice distilled farther out in the shade and on the banks of the nearby runs and well watered by the same. Now that sounds good. All this has been changed, and the time has come for a change of name. We suggest that the ladies propose names for this roadway, and at our next meeting vote in a new, more appropriate name. So what's the more appropriate name they came up with? Well, a few months later in the newspaper, it documents that the women have decided that since all the other streets in downtown are named after counties of South Carolina, that they were going to continue the trend and named it after Cherokee County for Cherokee, South Carolina. Needless to say, we don't call it Cherokee Road today. It only lasted, I think, for a little while, and then, this is legend, so I have to preface it with legend, that the winter colonists didn't like living on Cherokee Road. They liked living on Whiskey Road. So it was changed back to make the winter colonists happy. Now, I couldn't go too far without mentioning, of course, Whiskey and Easy, the classic scene in here, street names here in Aiken. And this one's a little bit of a tricky one. I did a lot of research on all the different names, and I have to admit, I ran out of time to do the depth of research that I like to do for Easy Street. But what I can tell you is that where I have that red circle is where you are sitting today. That is actually the Harrington House, so it predates Mr. Howe. This is a map from 1918. It's the first time we really see south of South Boundary on a sandboard map. You can see here that we have Joy Cottage in all of its splendor. And here is labeled 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue. We are on 4th Avenue, and the one on the other side of us over there is 5th Avenue. So originally, we were all living just on the other side of 5th Avenue, darling, where all your shopping delights come to life. So originally, there were 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th Avenues in this area. Well, it's hard to tell exactly when that started to change. I know that about 1930s, we became Newberry Street Extension versus 4th Avenue. And I can tell from the local newspapers that really 2nd Avenue, which is now Easy Street, stayed that way for a long time, at least legally, when people are describing buying land and how it bounded on 2nd Avenue. But locally, people start referring it to Easy Street as early as 1906. And I started to think, okay, 1906, we have the owner at the time, William C. Whitney, one of the wealthiest gentlemen in all of America. Am I right in saying that, Linda? Am I blowing him up good enough? All right, good. So he's fabulously wealthy. And what's interesting is that when people are selling land next to his beautiful Joy Cottage, they say that the land bounds on Whitney Avenue and Easy Street. And now Whitney Avenue evidently never caught. It never stayed Whitney Avenue. It's always been 2nd Avenue to us, which is right across the street, or 1st Avenue, sorry, 1st Avenue right across the street from us. But it seems like Easy Street caught, and people started referring to it as Easy Street, and therefore really angering all of the sign changers for decades to come because of the number of thefts of the Whiskey and Easy sign. I can't tell you how many times I read in the newspaper, sign stolen again, sign stolen again. We're going to drill it to the ground and concrete it, sign stolen again. So it's become that iconic street that it is, but it wasn't always that way. Originally it was 2nd Avenue, but sometime after William C. Whitney bought it, it became Easy Street because he was living on Easy Street. Now, I can't let you go without having a little bit of fun. Like I said, I was only able to explore a few road names, but then I saw so many others, and I was like, that's cute, that's fun, oh, that's silly. And so I thought I would just do a rundown for you. So, let me get some water. All right, let's go for it. So, off of Hampton Avenue here in Aiken, we've got President Drive, Congress Drive, Senate Drive, Cabinet Drive, Representative Drive, and Assembly Drive. I think all we're missing is Judicial and Vice President. Of course, if you live in College Acres, you live on Clemson Avenue, Citadel Avenue. I think there's some Carolina, USC or something. I'm not sure about that one. Sorry, got to represent Clemson. So if you live on College Acres, you're on a University Street. Now, this one I think is a conspiracy, y'all. Fresh Market and Harvard's are on Whiskey Road, and just down the road from them are Mimosa Circle and Sherry Drive and Gin Street. It's a marketing ploy. They are trying to get you to buy alcohol, and I fall for it every time. Other else in the county, you've got Sweet Hattie's Place. I'd love to live at Sweet Hattie's Place. You've also got Koala Bear Road near Severn. I don't think they ever saw koala bears there, so I'm not sure how that got named. In Wagner, you have Oscar Drive just down the road from Sesame Street, so you can see Oscar and Oscar. When I first came back from college, I bought a house on Oscaga Lake Road. Like maybe many of you, I thought it was a Native American name. Nope. It stands for Aiken, South Carolina, ASC, Augusta, Georgia, AUGA. It was the road from Aiken to Augusta. Like I told you, roads tell you where you're going. Now, if you're driving down Oscaga Lake Road, you will see Waldus Road, that is on Sudlow Lake. Waldus spelled backwards is Sudlow. That one took me a while. I'm blonde, y'all. If you're near Clearwater, actually, if you're near the Graniteville area, of course, you've got Giant Tire Parkway for the Bridgestone area. If you're in Clearwater, you have Bleachery Street, because actually one of the first developments for the Seminole Mill there, it was a bleachery. If you live in the Lyndhurst subdivision in North Augusta, which my dad grew up in, you've got Towhee, Partridge, Bunting, forgot the G, Siskin, and Bobolink. And that's because the man who developed Lyndhurst, his last name was Byrd, B-Y-R-D. So all the street names are named after birds. And of course, I had to look up what a bobolink was, so that's a bobolink, y'all. In Graniteville, you also have a Sleepy Hollow Road, so for all of you spooky people, be sure to go out there, but don't lose your head. We've also got, as our final one, the Primrose Way. Now, I just thought that was a really sweet name. Like, you think of like, oh, the Primrose Way, what a cool name. And it's just down the road from us. And then I looked it up, and it was like, the definition was a path to irresponsible hedonism. And I was like, ooh. So if y'all want to go have some fun with me, we'll go to the Primrose Way. It's just down the way in Warrenville. So we're good to go. And with that, I just want to say thank you all so much for coming out tonight. I hope you enjoyed the talk and learned some fun history.